Hi, I'm Katie with Modern Textiles, and today we're going to go over what longarm quilting is. So beside me, I have my longarm quilting machine head. So this is actually the device that does all the stitching, all that fun, beautiful, intricate top stitching on your quilts, which holds your quilt top, the batting, which is the middle of your sandwich, right? And then your quilt backing. I have a Gammill Optimum. This thing is, I want to say 2007. It is a beast and continues to do its job here almost 20 years later. Wow. So what longarm quilting is, I've been asked this numerous times by my family members. So hey there, family, if you're watching this. So the footprint of this whole machine is about 6 feet from this wall to where I'm standing, and then 14 more feet just for the piece of equipment. I have about 6 feet on that end to spare, so that way I can walk to the back of the machine and do any type of maintenance or check anything for tension, things like that on my quilt back. This machine is actually powered by a robot. So I've got the Statler system came with this. I actually bought this pre-used. And when I got it, it had a very old version of Creative Studio, which is the Statler system's software that it runs. And now, ever since I got this one, I actually upgraded the driver, the software, all that stuff. So I'm running on the latest and greatest. So now I'm going to show you just quickly how I load up a quilt back. So the first thing I'm going to do is load the quilt back up. That's going to be what's on the back side of your quilt, right? And I use these So-Type magnums. They're painless, one, because they're not pinning. So you have options for how to load a quilt back. A lot of people start out with pinning because it's the cheapest option. Typically, that's how I learned, actually. And then I switched over to a system called Red Snappers, which was good, but I had some issues loading sometimes that I didn't get it perfectly straight on. But then a few years back, a company came out, or So-Tights. They came out with these Magnum magnets, which are meant for longarm quilters to load quilt tops. If you'd like, I can do another video just about these. I could talk about them all day. But if you're wondering what these are, they're called So-Tight Magnums, and they come in a pack of 20 or possibly 30, I think now. I'll leave a link down in the show notes of where you can get them and how you can get a discount for them through my affiliate link, because honestly, I'll never go back to any type of loading system after this. So you may be wondering, with the So-Tights, will it hold Minky? It sure does. I've loaded Minky, I've loaded Fireside, regular quilting cotton, wide backs, all that, you name it. I have not had any problems with the So-Tight magnums not being able to pinch the fabric between the plate, which is in my leader here. So in the leader, there's a little plate I installed that's the same size as the So-Tight magnums, and then that way it just pinches my fabric to the leader. All right, now that I have my backing fabric loaded with the So-Tight Magnum system, I'm gonna go ahead and take up all this backing fabric onto my back bar, and then I'll bring it down onto this lower roller right here, so that way we can start quilting. Now I'm gonna go ahead and grab some batting, and I'm gonna lay it on top. The big thing is, this was always confusing when I first started longarm quilting, was you kind of have to think everything through. So this is Minky. You're gonna wanna have that Minky facing the bottom, because essentially, as we're quilting, you want it to treat exactly how you would on your domestic. So wrong side up, right side down. I've been trying out the Green Dream batting from Quilter's Dream. It's actually a poly blend that is using recycled bottles. So it has a very hint of green in it. And to be honest, the loft is about the same as 80/20 from Quilter's Dream Select. And it's been wonderful to quilt with, to be honest. I'm always trying to figure out a way to, do things a little bit more environmentally friendly when it comes to quilting, because the textile industry is pretty harmful to the environment. So whenever I can try to find something that, at least helps out a little bit, I feel like I'm doing my part. Especially, you guys have seen my scraps. I keep all my scraps. I don't throw them away. I find out even for the crumbs, I use them for a floor poof to stuff the floor poof. So really, I try to make sure that I have a zero waste shop that I'm working here, studio, in the best way possible. All right, and then I'm gonna go ahead and load up my quilt. I've been having fun doing a lot of Halloween quilts lately. And this one is actually Cake Weave, which is one of my designs available in my shop. And it's just a fun Halloween little sampler. So that's why I chose the black Minky to be a good cozy quilt for the fall temps coming in. So you may be wondering, why I folded this back onto itself. Mainly it's going to be, I run a registration line, just a regulated channel lock line at the very top of my quilting zone, and then I'll align this raw edge of my quilt up there, and that way I know it's going to be straight, and I can continue to make sure that the quilt is square as I'm quilting. All right, now that I have that registration line stitched out, I'm going to go ahead and line my quilt top raw edge to that line so I know it's perfectly straight across, and then you'll see me checking the vertical seams and a horizontal seam just to make sure that the quilt is square. All right, now that the quilt is square, everything is matching up on the top. I've ran my channel locks, which channel locks just mean it will keep your machine head from traveling any which way. It locks it either on the Y or the X axis, so that way you just know it's going to be perfectly square as I'm going down the quilt and quilting it. So once this is done, the next step is I based around the entire perimeter of the quilt. Well, not the entire quilt perimeter, but the quiltable area. So how far my machine, what quiltable area means, how far my machine will come to the belly bar here, and how far back the needle can travel to the top of the quilt there. That's your quiltable area, okay? So your machine head size and your quiltable area typically are different. So this machine, the Optimum, is a 30-inch machine head, but my quiltable space is only 24, a little less than 24 inches. So now to go ahead and do a basting stitch all the way around this quiltable area, I usually do a 1-inch stitch length, and then we'll go ahead and set up in the Statler system the design I want quilted, and then we'll get to quilting. All right, now that I have my basting stitch all the way around, I'm going to use, got it on this side, 2 clamps. This is just going to make sure that there's no puckering or anything like that going on behind our quilt, because I can't see that, right? I can see the whole quilt front, but until I start taking the quilt up onto the back bar, I can't see how my tension is. I do spot check before I start quilting, but once we're underway, we're going until we can start checking the whole backing as it's getting taken up on the quilt bar. I'm going to go ahead and show you on the Statler how I set up my quilt patterns or my quilting pantographs, so that way it's going to be laid out exactly how I want it on the quilt. All right, so this is what my quilt is going to look like after I'm done stitching it out. You can see the crosshairs of my machine, and then this is going to be what's in the quiltable area at the moment. So I'm going to go ahead and we will get to quilting. All right, now that we have our first pass complete, so a pass just means I've fully quilted out that quiltable area. When we talk as long armers as rows, that's going to be one design going straight across, okay? So we've got a repeat, which is the one type of edge-to-edge block that you connect multiple to make a row, and then you do multiple rows to fill out your quilting area. So I know whenever I say, yeah, I've got a robot that does my long arm quilting for me, everyone just assumes, okay, you said it, you forget it, and it'll be done by the end of the day. Not the case. You still have to have a lot of hands-on action and activity as a long arm quilter. So the main thing is after we load, then we quilt. Now I need to move my quiltable area to a blank part of the quilt, right? So I'm going to roll and take up the quilt that's already quilted onto the back roller, and then we'll set the repeat to do the same thing on the next quiltable area. So let me get to that. I'll roll it up, and then we set up the quilting again. Now that we have the next pass set up, we're just going to go ahead and quilt. And then you kind of rinse and repeat this until you're at the bottom of the quilt and repeat what we did at the top. We don't do a resignation line, but I do still square the vertical seams and the horizontal seams along with that. And then I make sure to trim off any excess patterns, so that way I'm not stitching like 6 inches below the quilt. So there's a way to trim everything, make it look clean. And then after that, you're ready to bind. Trim it up, square it up, and bind. And I'll see you in the next video where I go over my top 5 favorite jelly roll patterns from different designers.